take up as much of your time. So over here, I've already erased in some of the light, and I'm starting to build off of it to find the shapes. And I'm using my pencil to see how that shape, if I measure straight up, relates to the top of the glass. I'm looking at where it's going to hit if I did measure straight up, because that's my known object. Now I'm looking at the shape. There's like a white highlighted shape. If I get it a little bit wrong, that's okay, because nobody really has memorized what those reflections are doing. We just want to get it close. And here I'm measuring where that would hit at the top again. Everything relates to the top of my glass because that was my known object. Any little nook and cranny, if I need to know where it relates, I just use my pencil the way you just saw me do. I'm looking at that line. That line almost runs parallel to that edge. And I'm trying to see where that relates to the top part of my cup. I'm looking at the shape, where it curves, how much space is between which curve. And I may have to erase this quite a bit until I find the right shape. I want to make sure I have room on either side of the edge of my glass to put in all of the values and all of the shapes, if possible. Because that's what makes it look reflective, is all those weird shapes that are within the glass that you don't expect. And probably when you started this drawing, you didn't think it would take very long. We're just now starting to piece together some of the really, really intricate parts of it. It's a nice little lesson for sometimes there's a lot there that you don't know is there. There's always a little bit more than it seems. It's kind of why I like drawing. There's a lot of hidden things in the things that are all around us all the time. One of the ways that drawing is kind of like life is that sometimes you look at something that you're going to draw and you think you get it automatically, like it's like a snap of the fingers. Oh, I get how to draw a glass. Or whatever you're drawing. And then once you get into it, you really see how complicated it is, how much light has to do with it. And people are kind of like that, I think. You think you totally understand a person, you make a judgment, but people are complicated too. And sometimes there's more to people than you think. People have a lot more in them than you sometimes consider. So there's a lot of judgment that happens nowadays, and that's something that you need to kind of remember as we're doing this drawing. People are like that too. They're complicated. They've got, you got to always assume that people are doing the very best that they can. Okay, I'm continuing to put in shapes. There's a lot of different little wiggly shapes in that area. And I'm trying to get it as close as possible to the shape that I'm seeing in the resource. That's why I've got the resource really close to it. And I'm looking at where those shapes, if I measured straight up, where they would hit at the top of my known object. And then measuring off of mine that way too. And I'm trying not to make everything too dark as I work. Just in case I have to erase or shove things over, I want to be able to do that. And I know there are a few spots in that glass that are pure white. So I want to be able to have that happen. If I shade too much, it might scar the paper so much that it might stain it. So even if I needed to erase it, I wouldn't be able to. I'm constantly looking at that photograph resource trying to match back up to it. And I may not get it perfectly right, but I'll get it a lot closer if I'm looking at that and comparing. And if you're working on this and things aren't quite fitting, just keep kind of adjusting until you can get the majority of the pieces in. When I'm making shapes like this, I think about what's that line doing? Is that line curving? Is it in an angle? Is it straight across? What's the characteristic of that line? I don't try to make it be something that it's not. I'm just seeing it for what it truly is and then trying to put that shape and line in and value along with it. Right now I'm just building in the thicknesses that I'm seeing in different places. And I'm going to start putting some of the wood grain in, but I want to make sure it goes at the right angle. So you'll see me using my pencil to like get that exactly where I want it. And I'm kind of showing you which one I'm doing as I go. Eventually, as we're building this, we want that to look as though it's wood grain, but we don't want that to be our main subject. We want it to add to the subject. And everything that you're putting on here is either going to be beneficial or it's going to hurt the communication of the piece. So anything you do, it's kind of like a relationship. Anything you do, there is no neutral. It's either a good thing or a bad thing. It's either helpful or it's hurtful. There is no neutral. I'm not sure there's a neutral in anything, really, if you think about it. Here I'm measuring that angle using my pencil. And then I noticed I needed to adjust that line in the back that's horizontal. I had it a little bit high. So